folks. Welcome to Werewolf Radar, the world's premier paranormal preparedness podcast. My name is Jordan Dahl.
I am Nick Balding.
And I'm Roger Norquist.
Today's episode of Werewolf Radar is brought to you by Monstroco Blood Jewelry. Bedazzle your bloodstream with an intravenous dose of conflict-free sapphires, rubies, and sparkly, sparkly topaz. Be beautiful on the inside with Monstroco Blood Jewelry.
Could you imagine when going to the doctor and they draw blood and they see how shiny your blood is? They're going to be amazed.
They're going to be so impressed. They'll be like, these are some of the most expensive bloods I've ever seen. And then who's laughing? You at the doctor. And then you say, give me those. Those are mine. And you grab the blood bag and you jump out of the window into the woods.
Very Morbius situation, kind of.
Very, very Morbius situation. Monstroco Blood Jewelry by Monstroco. What the? I was watching Beyond Belief.
Mm-hmm. Great show.
Great show. And there was one about a guy, a patient at a hospital who stole a bunch of blood and drank it and then ran away when they caught him. And Beyond Belief was like, there was a vampire in Wisconsin.
Oh, I remember that.
Was it fake or true? And they were like, true. I was like, okay. So
kind of by the loosest definitions there.
Pretty fast and loose with the term true these days.
But I don't think they ever found him. I think it's a weird case of mystery, right? Or did they find him?
I don't know that they found him.
The Wisconsin vampire?
The Wisconsin blood sipper is what I call him. But yeah, Wisconsin vampire might be a better headline.
I'm not even super sure it was in Wisconsin, so now we're getting into a hairy spot. Who would like to go first? What do we have for the people?
I would like to tulpa into existence the Wisconsin blood sipper.
I would prefer that you didn't, frankly.
He just puts the blood on a spoon and sips it as if it was soup.
Oh boy.
I'm gonna go last though. I'm gonna wrap up my Philadelphia experiment segment by wrapping up the episode.
Right,
Nate, do you feel comfortable kicking us off?
I can grab up that skullsies.
Do it. Grab the skull. Clear the spit valve. Nobody ever clears the spit valve.
That's him doing it.
Mm-hmm. That was that sound.
Yep, that's the spit valve being cleared. So I'm going to, I haven't done this in a while. It's a new version. No, not a new version. A new installment of Semi-Scary.
Hey.
Ooh, hell yeah.
And for this one, we're going to Barbados.
Beautiful island. I believe that's where Rihanna's from.
Oh, we're going to jump back a few hundred years to a bad time in Barbados. Talk about the Chase Vault and the mystery of the moving coffins.
Oh.
Wait, moving coffins?
Chase banking?
Yeah, the Chase Bank that they have at the cemetery in Barbados and all of their moving coffins.
Okay.
So the Chase Vault, located in the Barbados Cemetery of the Christ Church Parish, is a fairly unremarkable semi-sunken tomb, save for the repeated stories of the coffins inside being thrown around by mysterious forces. The vault was originally built in 1724, but was purchased by the Chase family when Mary Ann Chase died at the tender age of 2. The little girl was placed in the vault in a lead coffin along with the vault's single other occupant, who was interred in a wooden coffin. Just a few short years later, Mary Ann's sister Dorcas was also buried in the tomb after starving herself to death.
Oh boy,
that's sad. But I like their attitude of just, well, we bought this mausoleum, let's stuff it with bodies.
I can't wait to get in there. I'm going to stop eating right now. That's an upsetting tale of depression in the past, but also some people are named Dorcas. You know what I mean?
I do.
It's like how some people's last name is Butt.
Oh, yeah.
And you can't laugh about it.
Like, it's so offended.
But every once in a while, they have like a funny parent who names their kid like,
Juicy
yeah, just like more or huge,
Bert.
Burt Butt.
Okay, carry on.
Death continued to plague the Chase family when the sister's father, Thomas, died around a month after his eldest daughter. However, when the thick marble slab that sealed the entrance to the vault was removed, the burial team discovered that the 3 coffins inside had been violently tossed around and were standing against the walls of the tomb in seeming disarray.
Weird.
There was no evidence of human tampering with the sealed vault, and none of the other vaults in the cemetery had been affected in the same way, eliminating the possibility of earthquake or flood.
Huh.
Good deduction for sure.
Yeah, I mean that was the first assumption was, well, maybe there was the floodwaters that were coming up, but yeah, this is the only one that gets hit.
Hmm.
And it doesn't happen once. It happens numerous times.
Yeah. Strange. Étrange.
Regardless, all of the coffins were placed in their original places, and Thomas's was added to the orderly pile. Years later, when the vault was once again opened to add another body to the pile, they found the coffins had once again been tossed around and were lying all about the vault. What ends up happening is everyone's freaking out. I believe this
I
is
would as well.
the third time they've opened it
Reasonable.
to put a new thing in. The coffins have moved. The bodies, however, have not moved from their coffin at all.
Okay, so the bodies are riding the coffin around the room.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it looks like, honestly.
Okay.
So there's the governor, Comber, I think Comber of Barbados at the time. They started moving, I believe 4 years before he showed up. And then he shows up. People are already kind of flipping their shit about this stuff, thinking there's something going on in the graveyard.
Sure.
So he has a bunch of sand placed on the floor of the tomb.
Whoa.
And the coffin's above it to see if anyone has moved in. And after 9 years, opens it up again. They've been tossed all around. One of them is totally smashed. The sand has not been touched.
I don't enjoy that. And I have no explanation for calming my fears.
How's that even possible?
Yeah. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, of all people, also tried to check in. And he ended up saying, well, it might be spirits.
Nice.
Yeah, Sherlock Holmes was like,
Ghosts?
No, I like to deduce relatively well. You've all read my books.
Sure,
I think it's
you're
ghosts.
A deduceman. Okay, Sherlock thinks it's ghosts. Okay, anybody else?
And there is a thing, it's possible, but we don't know for sure, that the patriarch, Thomas, actually killed himself. And in Barbados, according to the religious law that they were practicing at the time, if you died a bad death, which was a murder or a suicide or something other than natural.
Yeah.
If you were buried on consecrated ground, your spirit would not be able to move on.
Oof.
However,
if you were murdered and buried on consecrated ground, holy ground, stuck. Right?
Yeah. No, you're fucked. You're a ghost now.
That's not my fault. I was murdered. It might be though overall, but like there's plenty of people, innocent people murdered as well.
But supposedly Thomas, who by the way was also known as the most hated and violent plantation owner on Barbados at the time.
Okay.
So could have been murdered, might have killed himself, might have just died.
Either way, the Christian God went, no. Like Matumbo.
Not in my house.
Exactly. No. However, the coffins did start moving well before he died.
So he just joined the already started party.
But the first coffin was a 2-year-old girl. We don't know what the circumstances of her death was, but that could have also been an unkempt spirit.
Vampire?
I was thinking vampire child. I got Abigail on the brain.
Vampire child.
They did consider vampires, but the ground had been reconsecrated, so vampires theoretically shouldn't have been able to be in there.
And no Highlanders can die if I follow the lore. Or they're not supposed to.
Christophe Lambert just would have been sitting in there waiting.
That is the correct way to pronounce his name, and I hate it.
Yep. Christopher Lambert. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of there still has never been an answer to how these coffins got thrown around inside this tomb.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy, dude.
There are several ideas about there may have been a Masonic ritual where Masons may have come in and done some crazy shit for God knows why.
Use their Mason powers to move coffins without disturbing the sand.
Exactly.
Pretty big swing.
Well, in the same graveyard, a handful of years later, there was a bunch of Masons who broke down a different tomb, apparently to pay homage to one of the co-founders of the Masonic Lodge.
Interesting.
So
similar but different.
Well, they think maybe they could have, like, they would have been the people who could, like, take down a wall and then seal it back up, making it look like it had never been touched.
Oh, I was thinking like stonemasons, the Brotherly Lodge, and they mean no, just masons, some stone workers.
Yeah. Hilarious.
Stone workers are very shifty people.
Yeah, they love doing shit like this. They have the time and the drive to do something of this nature.
They're never tired after a hard day's work of building a wall.
Let's go goof around at the cemetery.
You want to build another wall? A midnight wall raising?
I mean,
bonkers.
And as hated as the guy was, it is kind of assumed to this day that perhaps it was a bunch of slaves who were like, let's go destroy this motherfucker's tomb. What a piece of shit.
That makes more sense, weirdly.
It's more believable and something I could latch onto. I would have that same emotion to be like, fuck this dude's tomb.
But
it also explains, like,
it takes an entire crew a whole day to get in there.
Yeah.
Just to put a coffin inside. Yeah. So, like, to just do it overnight, I mean, this is like crop circle shit.
Doesn't really make a lot of sense, does it?
Yeah, without the ease of crop circles, you know?
Anyway, that's the Chase Vault in the Barbados, a cemetery that you can still go to. You can visit this place. Somebody at one point chiseled a giant question mark into it.
Interesting and strange.
And let people know mysteries afoot.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's also hundreds of years old.
Interesting. So weird.
Yeah, this is an ancient Riddler.
The ancient Riddler is upon you. Scary.
And then she's brought in the chat. I mean, if throws out there, if there were more metal, maybe some sort of weird magnetism throwing shit around.
That has been looked at numerous times because they were all lead lined. But also, again, when they put the sand in, there was no motion in the sand, even from like coffins having been moved. There was no dragging. There were no footprints. There was nothing. They were just up against the walls and having been smashed. Like the amount of magnetic force that it would take to move that much lead.
Yeah,
and lead isn't magnetic, I've just learned.
Yeah. It's not. But
anything can be magnetic, truly. You can
with
charge
enough magnets.
But naturally, yeah, that's a dry well I'm digging.
Did ICP ever figure out how magnets work?
They did.
It's a motherfucking miracle.
Oh, well, it's the same way. You know how clowns can like cough out a balloon?
Yes.
That's how magnets work.
Okay. Makes a lot of sense now.
They work via clown coughing balloon syndrome?
Yeah. Exactly.
Killing America's clowns as I speak.
Donate to clown coughing syndrome that's killing American clowns. May I take the skull?
Yes, you can.
I'm going to take the skull. I'm going to give it a little smooch. I want to talk to you guys about the Blackbird of Chernobyl.
Ooh, frightening in a frightening place.
The Blackbird of Chernobyl is not just a sick name for a boxer at the time. Beginning in early April 1986, the people in and around the little town, this is from fandom.com. This is a Mothman, you guys. That was
Mothman
seen
sighting, European
in
Mothman.
and around, well, not European, but yeah, in and around.
I mean, Chernobyl's in Europe.
Yeah. Chernobyl is in Russia.
Russia's part of Europe, especially that part past the Ural Mountains. Anyway, that's now geography. We're a paranormal podcast. Jordan chose a side, okay?
Anyway,
beginning 10 kilometers inside Russia.
Beginning in early April of 1986, the people in and around the little-known Chernobyl nuclear power plant began to experience a series of strange events revolving around sightings of a mysterious creature described as a large, dark, and headless man with gigantic wings and piercing red eyes. Remind you of anyone?
Ooh, that's Mothman.
Yeah, that's my stepfather.
Travis, what are you doing there? People affected by this phenomenon experienced horrific nightmares, threatening phone calls, and first-hand encounters with the winged beast, which became to be known as the Blackbird of Chernobyl.
I do like that this version of the Mothman is giving like KGB.
Yes. Sure. Although threatening phone calls, that happened in the original Mothman case. Calls from an entity calling itself Indrid Cold.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
Yes. Reports of these strange happenings continue to increase until the morning of April 26, 1986, when at 1:23 a.m., Reactor 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant suffered a catastrophic steam explosion that resulted in a fire, which caused a series of additional explosions followed by a nuclear meltdown. The power plant, located near Pripyat, Ukraine, Soviet Union, spewed a plume of radioactive fallout which drifted over parts of the Western Soviet Union, Eastern and Western Europe, Scandinavia, the UK, Ireland, and Eastern North America. Large areas of the Ukraine, Belarus, Russia, badly contaminated. It was a very bad time. There's a TV show about it. I don't want to watch it because it scares me.
Also, you can visit there as a tourist, but you have to take insane precautions, radiation pills. It's a whole thing. I think Expedition Truth or Destination Unknown went there. I forgot which version of the Josh Gate went there.
Yeah, I remember years ago I saw a photo documentary of some woman who went there on a motorcycle, was afraid to step off of the road because if you did, you would just immediately get cancer, basically.
Yikes.
I mean, on the road, you're not doing well for your chances of cancer either. Yeah. She's trying to outrun the fallout.
Yeah. So, bad time. It was a bad time. It was considered the worst accident ever in the history of nuclear power. Following the meltdown, subsequent explosions and fires, Soviet helicopters were dispatched to the scene, equipped with special firefighting gear. These helicopters circled the plant, dropping clay, sand, lead, and other extinguishing chemicals onto the burning facility. Most of the fire was out by 5 a.m., with the fire burning within Reactor 4, continuing to blaze for several hours. There's stories of the guys in the helicopters seeing something whiz past their helicopter. That one is...
Yes, their life flying before their eyes.
That one is on a different fandom page. They mention it. I think just the cryptids and monsters, but it's like a weird translation. It's like, man in helicopter, he see flying creature.
I believe it. I mean... It would still be around. Yeah. Mothman was seen right up to and somewhat after the what was it? The Silver Bridge collapse.
The Silver Bridge. The workers who survived the initial blast and fire, but would later die of radiation poisoning, claimed to have witnessed What has been described as a large black bird-like creature with a 20-foot wingspan gliding through the swirling plumes of irradiated smoke pouring from the reactor.
It likes it. It's all like, this is a fun smoke.
No further sightings of the Blackbird of Chernobyl were reported after the Chernobyl disaster, leaving researchers to speculate just what haunted the workers of the plant during the days leading up to the disaster.
There's a lot of stuff that's going through their bodies, but and this is me not being a doctor nor specializing in radiation fallout, but is there a radiation psychosis that could have caused this?
Maybe.
I would imagine, yeah. I mean,
the most commonly accepted theory suggests that the Blackbird of Chernobyl may have been the same creature spotted in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, leading up to the collapse of the Silver Bridge on December 15th, 1968. The Blackbird of Chernobyl happened in 1986. A reversal of the last numbers. Weird. Investigators have suggested that the appearance of this creature is an omen of disasters to come in the area in which it shows itself. The physical description of both the Blackbird of Chernobyl and the Mothman, the creature sighted in West Virginia, are very similar, and the reports of nightmares and threatening phone calls leading up to these disasters are shared in both cases. Second, less accepted theory suggests that the Blackbird of Chernobyl was, you guessed it, a stork. They're really leaning on stork for this one. And one stork, I'll hear you out. You get to speak at the table. When we're going back to the stork well.
Yeah, you know how birds are always seen singular? Never.
And storks are still huge, but I don't believe 20-foot wingspan by any means.
They're enormous. Yeah, but that would be something in and of itself to see.
Gigantuan versus just a normal enormous stork.
Yeah. This also plays into the sightings of the humanoid, the flying humanoid in Chicago, which some people have called the Batman or the the Blackbird. Some people call it the Blackbird. A dark winged humanoid with glowing red eyes have been reported for decades across the country. The most famous, Mothman, of course. 46 years later, the first reports the creature's appearance and significance inspired a film, movie, and countless pop culture references. Stickler, who told the Chicago Reader that he encountered Mothman when he was a child in Pennsylvania, started hearing stories about a winged creature in Chicago in 2011. When he received 3 reports last year, only 1 report popped up. But Strickler had tracked 29 sightings so far in 2017. So I don't want to get grim about it, but is something coming to Chicago?
It already has. It's just gun violence. He's all like, please ban guns.
Okay. The Mothman is kind of microdosing tragedy.
Yeah. Chernobyl and the Silver Bridge were just too much tragedy for him. He didn't like the trip, if you will. So now he microdoses. It's safer.
Yeah. My question to you guys is this, I think, forces us to look at Mothman in a different light.
A lot of similarities.
What is Mothman? Mothman gets lumped in with cryptids more often than not. Well, I gotta say, I'm leaning spirits. I'm leaning almost at this point, like if we are to presuppose that these people are actually seeing an entity at these sites of great disasters, the biggest disasters.
The best.
We're talking about some kind of like almost like biblical horseman of doom that feeds on this mass panic, the tragedy. And that tracks with what we know or what we assume about, dark energy beings feeding on negative emotions. But this would be a gourmand almost.
But not only
type of tragedy.
Not only that, but it has a very tangible side of it too, to where both Chernobyl and Point Pleasant has.
I bet West
phone
Point
calls.
Fair share of
terrible
shit going too.
That's for a separate episode. The Mothman of West Point, and it just some shit ass officer.
It's just horrible hazing.
there is a someone making calls at both of these and threatening people. I can only assume who have seen it. So like someone in the government or around governments is following this omen. So like it's searchable. It's something you can trace almost.
Well, yes. Nicholas Redfern talked about how the Men in Black have a kind of like psychic hunger, possibly for like pain and anxiety, weird shit. I mean, so we kind of know that there is potentially, at least, and that would be the people making the calls, right? That's
Indrid Cold had that Mothman had that Men in Black energy.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, there might even be we know that UFOs tend to be found around nuclear power plants. So if they're disrupting something, or if they're finding some sort of weird biochemical sustenance from that, Chernobyl would have definitely been a huge place to have been in.
Truly. Yeah, I don't know. I think we got to get Mothman out of that cryptid classification.
You think more omen, more spiritual, like you said.
I think we're dealing with a negative psychic entity here.
Well, then if you're doing that, I'm putting the person making the phone calls in that slot that we just freed up.
Oh, okay.
The phone callers are now cryptid.
Interesting. I see what you're doing.
It's a tangible thing. Like someone's making these calls. I don't think spirits are out there making too many calls. However, there are cases of spirits, calling people when they died and be like someone dies in a car accident, and then everyone who was friends with them and family get calls after the moment they died. I believe there's a very famous train
don't
crash.
Stop picking me up. I'll be fine.
Yeah. I do believe there is a very tragic train accident where someone called their lover, their family, their friends during the hours after he was presumed to be dead. Like it was death instantaneously on accident, and then the calls happened.
Weird.
You know what's insane? I actually have a tab open for ghost calls.
Whoa.
So maybe I'm wrong and it's not a cryptid. That might also be something spiritual or otherworldly.
Spooky.
Not like a Bigfoot otherworldly, but like ghost otherworldly.
Sure.
Omen otherworldly.
Very strange. Well, that does it for my segment that I'm calling The Blackbird of Chernobyl. Sweet name for a car or a monstrous happening.
Nice. Well, then I will take the skull to wrap up the episode and wrap up my segment on the Philadelphia experiment. Last week, I decided to cut what I said because I said it like a crazy person with a fever dream. So here I come back a little bit more
I don't know
return.
if there's another way you can talk about the Philadelphia.
If once again you don't know what the Philadelphia experiment is, let me go to the Wikipedia for it as just a bringing us back. The Philadelphia experiment was an alleged event claimed to have been witnessed by an ex-merchant mariner named Carl M. Allen. 2 weeks ago, we read the first letter that Carl M. Allen sent to one Morris K. Jessup. This was seen at the United States Navy Philadelphia Naval Shipyard in, you guessed it, Hitler, Kansas.
What?
No, in Philadelphia,
I gotta change that name. Squad.
Anyway, there's a few.
No, it was Gering, Missouri.
A different Hitler. Why does everybody always?
It was a common German name at the time. Sometime around October 28th, 1943, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Allen described an experiment where the U.S. Navy attempted to make a destroyer escort, the USS Eldridge, disappear, and bizarre results followed. We talked about those results. Supposedly, Carl M. Allen gives a number of situations and circumstances that the sailors continue to go through that were brought into a secret project afterwards, such as freezing in time. Some were set ablaze when getting stuck on time. Deal. Listen to the episode, Philadelphia Experiment Part 2. I forgot what the episode's called, but it's, if you're listening to this, go back 2 episodes. All right? I'm not going to look it up.
And then listen to this.
And then listen to this.
Again, and it'll make more sense.
All the way through. That episode was actually called Caddy is a Better Monster Than Nessie.
Whoa, shots fired.
Yeah, that's why it's one of our better viewed and listened episodes. I shot some fire. I fired some shots, I mean.
I gotta say, I've been having to face some hard truths about Nessie recently.
Don't.
This is a particularly
just don't.
Sore subject.
That's exactly what denial's for, Jordan.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about denial. Yes.
So the story surfaced in late 1995 when Allen sent a book full of handwritten annotations along with letters referring to the experiment to one Morris K. Jessup in his book, Case for the UFO, Unidentified Flying Objects. There were 3 different handwritings. One of them named themselves as a Jemmy, Jemi, however you want to pronounce that. I think it's a gift situation. I don't know what the correct way of pronouncing it is until someone yells it at me.
What are they trying to get across to us?
What are you trying?
What is a Jemmy?
What is a Jemmy? Jemmy was a person in this case. They were like, yo, I'm Jemmy here. This is my handwriting. You both be idiots. Supposedly, it was 3 different people.
Okay, got it.
They also say that a separate ship, a merchant mariner, was viewing this experiment, and that merchant mariner ship was the SS Andrew Forsyth, named after a famed, or maybe not famed anymore, but at the time, a very successful labor leader in America.
Yeah, they tend to get covered up.
However, everything I have to tell you more than likely is not true. There are a number of inconsistencies that we're going to go over right now, and I'm pulling this specifically from the history.navy.military website, and there they have various paragraphs dictating where ships were according to their deck logs. So for the USS Eldridge, it would have to be in the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard on, what was it, October 28th? I already forgot. Stoner brain still, despite me not being able to smoke weed. I hate everything about life right now. Yes, October 28th. So let's go into the USS Eldridge's ship logs, archives that have been reviewed by multiple experts on ships and sea life.
Various ships, sure.
Say that it was the USS Eldridge was commissioned on August 27th, 1943 at the New York Naval Yard and stayed there through December 1943. When it then eventually went on and I forgot the correct phrasing, but a test trip on, stressing the ship's naval abilities. Sure. And they spent a good time in Bermuda. They traveled down to Bermuda, stayed there for a couple months, and unfortunately were nowhere near the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. That being said, there was another ship that people say it could have been, but that ship as well has a lot of documentation on it. The ship in reference, which I'll bring up in on the YouTube page when I find the correct information on it, was going through invisibility experiments.
Oh. Well,
however, those experiments in invisibility were not for the naked eye, but for magnetic torpedoes that Germans were developing. So the invisibility was to make one ship invisible to the magnetic tracking of a German torpedo, which was phenomenal science at the time.
Maybe they did it too good. Maybe they did it too well.
They did it pretty well.
We over-invisibled it.
There were a number of lights reported at this. There were a number of weird lights that appeared, and this technique that was pretty much invented using Albert Einstein's theories is called degaussing. I might be pronouncing that wrong, but it makes it to where it loses its magnetic
polarization.
Thank you. So like it would, in this case of a magnetic torpedo, send it off course, saving the ship and the crew. It was done with so much power that at the ship's mast, the tall things, I believe those are masts, right?
Sure, something like that.
In theory, there was a number of weird green glows, which turned out to be crazy St. Elmo's fire.
Oh, whoa. Interesting.
Indeed. So
for those of you who don't know what that is.
Yeah, we'll go into that in another episode where we go a little bit crazy with it and claim it's ghosts.
It's like ball lightning.
Very much
strange form of energy.
It would happen a lot on old ships too. Anything that could kind of attract that type of electricity, magnetic forces, static electricity, for example, can create ball lightning in such places. Ball plasma, it is also kind of confused with. So unfortunately, the USS Eldridge and the Instrom, while the Instrom was there, the experiment in invisibility was far from what was reported in the Carl M. Allen letters. On top of that, Carl M. Allen did not like Morris K. Jessup.
Oh, Carl M. Allen.
We learned that in the episode. We learned that in the episode that I read the first letter, and he ends very disrespectfully yours, Carl M. Allen, and wrote those letters and admitted to being the Jemmy and the two other handwritings in that book to kind of drive, and this is me putting my own thoughts on there, but I believe he did it to kind of drive Carl M. Jessup insane because he thought all of this UFO nonsense was foolish and he wanted to play his own prank, leading, unfortunately, to the demise of Morris K. Jessup, which we'll get to at the end. Let's go on with the SS Andrew Forsyth. Also, a number of people claim to be brainwashed after the original experiment to keep their mouths shut. They all kind of appeared after a movie was made on the Philadelphia experiment in 1988. They all eventually admitted to making it up for attention. That's kind of me shorthanding it. There's more to it than that. But they definitely all came out because they wanted to be part of this experience, part of this story.
That movie's title, of course, Blue-Pilled Sheep.
Yeah, I bet they were giving everybody like $600 to be in it or something. And they're like, I want $600.
And I got the date wrong. It was 1984. And the movie was called The Philadelphia Experiment, directed by one Stuart Raffill. I'm not familiar with his work.
I have seen this movie.
Oh.
Yeah, after that movie came out, it was kind of like Close Encounters, and I forgot which the one that was kind of based on. There was Contact, based on the guy who was the first one to get anally probed.
No, you're thinking about Communion.
Thank you.
Whitley Strieber.
Yes. Same thing there. You had a number of people remembering that they were part of this. It kind of jarred the memories, if you will, and added to the hoax.
Happily parallels the Satanic Panic, where it was shit tons of kids supposedly remembering they were taken to caves and fucked by demons.
Yes. Now with the what a weird time, and I mean it's still a weird time in this country and every country. Humans are weird, So supposedly the crew of the merchant ship, the SS, and this is once again now from the Navy military website, The crew of the civilian merchant ship, the SS Andrew Forsyth, observed the arrival via teleportation of the Eldridge to the Norfolk area of Virginia, West Virginia, I think. Maybe just normal Virginia.
I think normal Virginia. West Virginia would be inland.
Yeah, I guess that is a landlocked, Mothmanning centered state.
Although, if it shows up in a coal mine, that's hilarious.
These records you can find in the 10th Fleet records in the custody of the modern military branch National Archives and Records Administration. The address, if you want to go there, or maybe write them a letter, is 861 Adelphi Road, College Park, Maryland, zip code 20741. This is part of the article, is why I read it out. And seriously, if you have questions, send them questions. That's what they're literally there to answer your questions if it involves military and ship records.
Question them. Ship records.
This also includes custody of action reports, war diaries, deck logs, the whole shebang that you'd be looking for if you're looking to actually investigate the truth on the Philadelphia experiment. The movement cards list the merchant ship's ports of call, dates of visit, and convoy designations. The movement report cards show that the Andrew Forsyth left Norfolk to convoy UGS 15 on August 16th of 1943 and arrived in Casablanca on September 2nd. So we're before the October 28th date, but we're pretty far from Philadelphia right now. And at this time, I mean, still
43, right?
Yeah, still modern ship travel is a long, arduous journey. You know, ships only move like what, 30 miles an hour?
Something like
I actually don't know that much about ships.
Me neither.
No idea how a knot travels into miles. I grew up in California. You would have think I would have memorized more of what ships are and what they do.
Well, was it important to your life at the time?
No, if your ship wasn't haunted and dry docked in a bay, I did not care.
Yeah.
So they're in Casablanca, September 2nd. The ship leaves Casablanca September 19th and arrived off Cape Henry on October 4th. It then leaves Norfolk on October 25th and arrives on Orang on November 12th and stays in the Mediterranean until January 1944. So all the ship's records that are kind of arduously done, especially during wartime for military, I mean, you could lie. That's how secret, you know, the Trinity Project, for example, tons of lies and whatnot told around it to keep various secrets.
Nothing but lies.
Nothing but lies.
Lies on lies.
And some explosions and lies to cover up the weird explosions. But all records from anything to do with these ships show that they were far away from when they were supposedly to be where Carl M. Allen said. And once again, Carl M. Allen admitted to making all this up to kind of just play with Morris K. Jessup.
Trying to make him lose his marbles.
Yes, which he did, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
Yes. But it was very much a Paul Bennewitz situation, if I got the name right, where one Richard Doty, who is now for some reason all over the ancient alien nonsense as some sort of like in-house hero of the movement. Richard Doty caused Paul Bennewitz to kill himself by feeding him fake information, telling him to keep watching to the skies. Paul Bennewitz lived right next to Gloom Lake, the original Area 51, and was seeing all sorts of test vehicles and thought they were aliens, picking up various scrambled radio transmissions. And Richard Doty went, "Nah, that's real, man. You found aliens."
Drove that man insane.
Drove him insane.
Yeah.
Carl M. Allen did the same to Morris K. Jessup about 20 years before Richard Doty was in his prime.
Oh, the template.
So Jessup attempted to make a living writing UFO books. We know, I keep naming one of them, The Case for UFOs. But they did not sell well. His follow-up books did not sell well. Truly, The Case for UFOs was his biggest seller, and it did enough at the time to really take care of his family at the time. But as things moved on, they did not. In 1958, his wife leaves him. He travels to New York. He is noticed by all of his friends and community to be very unstable, and eventually ends his own life in via car exhaust, if you will.
Oh, okay. That's better than jumping in front of a interstate or something.
One of the politer ways to die for society if you're going to do it yourself, but still did not have to happen, and was led into it via the writings of Carl M. Allen.
Yeah.
And that, I think, truly is my segment. It was a hoax. It led to the demise of someone who did not need to die. I don't think his books were great, but they're a fun read. If you haven't read The Case for UFOs, it makes some interesting cases for UFOs.
For UFOs, if you can believe it.
It's semi-foundational if you want to get into ufology.
And
well, there you go.
The real Philadelphia experiment was one to make ships invisible, but to magnetic torpedoes, which phenomenal technology at the time, fucking groundbreaking work, taking what Albert Einstein was thinking with his theory of relativities and the unified theory of all forces of nature, and really kind of applying that knowledge to where, no, with electricity, I can affect other forces, or vice versa. Phenomenal work from the U.S. military. And I don't like saying that often as, war crimes.
Yes.
But it in terms of science, phenomenal work. It really led to what we know as modern society, what came out of World War II.
There you go, military. The one compliment you'll get from Roger Norquist.
I know what you did.
Keep it.
I know what you're doing.
Savor it. It's not going to happen again. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the pod. We love you. We love doing this every week. If you really like what we do, if you're just joining us, check out our Patreon, check out our Twitter, check out our Instagram,
YouTube,
check out our Twitch channel, check out our YouTube, check us out all over the place. Please invite us onto your podcast. We would love to be guests on your podcast.
Dude, that would be cool. I should hit up some of our podcast friends, see if they want to chat for fun.
Let's pot them up. If you have a podcast, hit us up. We will do it. I will do it, at least. I can't
Jordan
speak
will
for
do
the
it.
other fellas, but
and we'll
I'm there.
poke them with the stick, making them say the things we want.
That's mainly the things they want me to say.
That's fun.
That's what they're getting. That does it for another episode of Werewolf Radar. Thank you so much for joining us. On the count of three, our sign-off line: tell no one what has transpired here today. 1, 2, 3. Punch the sky, Spaceman Joe. That's for our other segment. You can tell people what transpired here.
Thank you to all our patrons: Nick Bailey, Spooky Appalachia, Phil Corridor, Michael King, Melinda Mitz, Janet Bravo, Dylan Gutierrez, Bob Ryan, AWOL51, Tobias Livingston, The Most Well-Prepared Dead Guy, Necrophil, Marcelo Duran, Major Consequences, Alicia Coy, Cheesebot O'Doom, Amanda, Abby Claboo, Ryan Flint, Jake Speck, Akirian Soldier, Dean Malik, Dakota Vincent, Ryan Ely, Adra Kinkle, Egon Felix, our Chancellor of Madness, and the Dark Lord of the Bunker, Spectacular Copper.